Now, we are 1 week away from the long-awaited budget, and inflation has fallen to 3.6%.
That's right. A bit of good news for Chancellor Rachel Reeves after an 18-month high of inflation in September of 3.8%.
And the budget was on everyone's mind at PMQs earlier today, as Keir Starmer was quick to hit back at Kevin Badenoch's questions.
Won't do is inflict austerity on the country as they did. What we won't do is inflict a borrowing spree like Liz Truss did, also inflicted huge damage.
This important interruption is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Protect your money and your identity. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code here to get ExpressVPN right now and save up to 73% on annual plans today. Right, let's get back into it.
Mr. Speaker, have they learnt anything? She's apparently got a golden economic rule, I think. So it's a very important rule, this golden rule. There's this £47 billion of cuts with no detail. No wonder the Institute of Government says they're on very shaky foundations. They haven't listened and they haven't learned.
We're joined now by the economics editor of the Spectator magazine, Michael Simmons. Michael, why is falling inflation good news for people?
Well, it's good news for people with mortgages, for example, because we're going to have another meeting before Christmas of the Bank of England's Monetary Policy Committee, and this might encourage them to cut interest rates, which will help any homeowners. It'll help the Chancellor a bit as well, because hopefully it will bring down the staggering costs we have to pay servicing our debt. But it's a bit of a mixed bag, right? Because even though it's come down a little bit, you've got food inflation going up, and we're still an outlier compared to Europe, where inflation's coming down a lot quicker. So it's good news, but it could be better, I'd say.
So, look, earlier we spoke to a lady called Caitlin Boswell. Now, she was saying, because a lot of people are not liking the direction the Chancellor is going, and particularly the wealthy, because she's taxing and taxing and taxing. Sure. And they are looking to tax unearned income, she called it. And Caitlin was of the impression that these people, these wealthy people, these middle to high earners and the super wealthy aren't leaving this country, and that the figures don't reflect that. What is the truth? What is the reality?
I mean, I think categorically they are. People quibble with some of the kind of...
So they are leaving?
They are leaving, they are, yeah. People quibble with some of the survey-based data that's been used this year, but we had revisions from the ONS to their net migration figures yesterday, and part of that's a change where instead of using survey data, they're looking at visas, they're looking at tax receipts, and they can see that more people are leaving the country than previously thought, and not just the rich. This is young people as well. But you get it anecdotally too. I mean, I've been speaking to wealth managers, people that represent these very wealthy taxpayers who, by the way, do pay a massive chunk of tax. And some of them have complained that they've lost all their clients. So, you can just look around. It is definitely happening. And I think we've got more and more data that supports that.
And who's to blame for that, Michael? I mean, is it the politics? Is it the fact that Labour won a landslide majority last July? They've ramped up taxes last November. We're expecting that next week. Is that the problem here, or are there other factors at play too?
Well, I think if you look at the very wealthy people leaving, this is actually something that was started under the last government. They started to crack down on non-doms, and then Rachel Reeves has taken that further. And now with all this briefing that there might be further taxes on wealth, that they are going to pay even more, that's pushing people away. But it's now not just the wealthy going, it's young people too, in quite large amounts. And I think that's not just directly politics that makes things worse. It's just the general feeling that this country is kind of stuck economically. We're not growing. Yes, inflation has come down today, but it's still, the highest out of major economies. And people, I think, just think, let's give it a chance somewhere else.
Well, Rachel Reeves seems to think that if she was to leave as Chancellor, then it would cause a crash in the markets, because she said, remember what happened last time? Remember when she was in tears? Well, that didn't help. But
every time you're online, your money and your identity are at risk. Scams now make up nearly 40% of all crime in the UK. That's thousands of attacks every single day. In Britain, someone has their identity stolen every 2 minutes, leaving victims with wrecked finances and years of stress. The threat is real, and you could be next. ExpressVPN is your shield against criminals. It locks down your devices, hiding your personal information and financial details from hackers, scammers, and anyone else looking to exploit you. So whether you're checking your bank, shopping, or just browsing, ExpressVPN makes you invisible to prying eyes trying to steal your money and your identity. ExpressVPN shields your data with military-grade AES 256 encryption. That's the same standard trusted by the US government to guard classified information. This is the highest level of online security you can get. So don't wait for disaster. Secure up to 14 devices at once and get powerful password protection. Real support is available 24/7 because cybercrime never sleeps. Save up to 73% on annual plans today. Every moment you hesitate is another moment you're exposed. Protect your money and protect your identity. Get ExpressVPN right now.
Would the markets actually be glad if she left?
I actually have some sympathy for Reeves here because I think the markets think that anyone that would come in behind her would be even less likely to bring down our spending, which is the thing they're really concerned about. But they don't actually care who the Chancellor is. What they're worried about is the Labour backbenchers. The markets freaked out when the government U-turned on winter fuel and the cuts to the welfare benefits bill. And they just think it doesn't really matter who the Chancellor is because no one's going to be able to get through, serious fiscal reforms.
Michael Simmons, you're the economics editor at The Spectator. What's in the budget next week, then? I asked that. I mean, we have heard lots of hints, haven't we, at PMQs there about tax thresholds for income tax being frozen again, despite the fact the implication was that wouldn't happen at last year's budget. But there might be some playing around with how we support private pensions through employment, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that the threshold being at least frozen is inevitable. That will get her something like £10 billion. And this is clearly playing into a Treasury strategy where they just want to inflate away things like the personal allowance so that you would drag even more people into paying tax. If she had gone for what was originally briefed, that they'd increase the basic rate, that might have helped the inflation problem just because it would have tackled people's spending power a bit. But this smorgasbord approach that we're now hearing about, where it'll be lots of little things like the milkshake tax, could actually send prices rising again. So I'd be looking out for that next week.
Very sneakily, I shouldn't do this, but we've got about a minute left. And what about the effect of her VAT raid on private schools? What has that done?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think that we're still sort of waiting for more and more evidence to get the clearer picture on this, but it's pretty clear that less people, than maybe middle-class people or lower-middle-class people who are on the threshold of affordability are now deciding that they can't send their kids to these schools.
Michael Simmons, economics editor for The Spectator, thank you for joining us tonight on Good Afternoon Britain.
Right, thank you so much. Right, as I've just gone 14 minutes after 2 o'clock, and net migration in the UK last year was 20% lower than previously thought.
But revised figures from the Office for National Statistics show 257,000 British nationals left the UK in the year ending December 2024. That's 3 times the previous estimate of just 77,000.
Now, one person who's left the UK is businessman Alfie Best, and he joins us now. Alfie, welcome to the programme. Really good to talk to you. So, Alfie,
Great to talk
to me about this. Have you left the country, and what are people like you saying about what's going on in the UK economically?
Well, I'm seeing it obviously from a different view now because I'm outside the UK looking in. And it seems like a horror story that's just getting to a sequel because they're not supporting business. And worst of all, they're not supporting the middle-class workers in the UK. They seem to be filtering through taxes to see what the responses are in the budget before we've even had the budget to see what the responses are. And I believe they're doing that to see how the reception is of the general public.
And why did you leave, Alfie? I mean, you've done very well for yourself. Why not hang around here and let your tax money benefit us all us Brits?
I never ever wanted to leave the UK. I left through persecution and what I concede as being vexatiously taxation on me. And I saw that the way the UK was going. And until we have a forward-thinking government that realises that our great country is great, but we just seem to be great for the rest of the world because we're feeding the rest of the world, but persecuting the people that are British, that have done so much for Britain, as well as for they're not looking after the actual now general public overall. I left because I was forced to leave.
Good point. even if you've been taxed and they were spending it wisely, would be good. But it seems as though they are wasting the money on inefficient schemes, a £52 million road in the Amazon, when they're talking about climate change that goes nowhere. I mean, is this all part of it? They seem to be wasting money. If this were you running the country, what would you be doing in terms of tax?
Look, in my view, and I'm certainly not qualified to run the country, I'm a humble businessman, and that's what I do best. I believe that everybody in life is a genius and everybody in life is an idiot. You just have to find what you're a genius at. We have a Prime Minister at the minute who is a genius. He's a genius as a civil rights lawyer. He's just not a genius as a Prime Minister. And I'm sorry to say, none of their cabinet has been in work, been in business. And unless you know exactly what a cash flow looks like, and they certainly don't, because they're the only government that I've seen that gives away more to foreign aid than any other government in history. And that's a fact.
Alfie, you've moved now to Monte Carlo. What would bring you back to the UK? Setting aside which party's in charge, what policies would the next government need to do to bring Alfie Best back to the UK?
I think it's about trust and the damage that has been done. And I'll be brutally honest with you, it started with the Conservatives and led through and followed by Labour government. And that's not me criticising any government, it's criticising the policies that were put in place. The damage that has been done trust-wise to our great country has sent business leaders and business titans outside of our country to more welcoming shores. And these are not digital nomads. These are people like Mattel, where we're now having to buy our steel elsewhere. He didn't only leave himself, he left with 100 of his
I'm just trying to ask, Alfie, what you want to see from the next government of whichever stripe to bring you back to the UK. What do you want to see? What policies? What's in your manifesto?
Show trust within our business. Make our country great by welcoming business. Support the people, support the businesses. Don't punish them. When you get a speeding fine, you get a speeding fine, which is a tax for driving badly. When you get taxed, you get taxed for doing a great job. And that tax then gets rewarded to others that are doing a bad job.
All right, Alfie Best, really good to talk to you. Thank you so much for taking time out in Monte Carlo.